when you look at the bye week, Brad, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday as well. I put up on auburndaily.com, you can check it out, 3 goals. 3 goals for the Auburn Tigers during the bye week. And I think all 3 of them are very obtainable, which is exciting. So the first is to get healthy. I mean, there's so many guys that have just been banged up. They're playing through a lot of stuff. Jalen McLeod's probably the best example of this, and he missed some time. But Jalen McLeod, we don't know what 100% Jalen McLeod looks like on this team because he's kind of been fighting from behind physically just because he got banged up towards the end of fall camp. Really unfortunate timing with his injury. Yeah. Nick Mardner is another guy who we heard good things about all fall camp, consistently lined up with the ones, and then he got hurt at like the worst time you possibly could. We saw him late in the game against Georgia. They threw to him late, and it seemed like there was miscommunication between him and Peyton Thorne. But, what does this extra week off look like for those guys? And you've got the guys with the bigger injuries, like Keontae Scott, Austin Keys, Damari Austin. I don't know if you're going to get any of those guys back in time to go to LSU.
Right.
But these dudes who've been battling through a lot of pain. Auburn's defensive front 7 is really, really banged up. They're playing through a lot of injuries right now. I think this week off could help them a ton.
I think there's no question. And coaches always have to wrestle with that question is, how much time off do you give them during a bye week? How physical are you the rest of the way? Games are going to be physical for the final 7 weeks, October 14th through November 25th. And you have a game every week in that stretch, and all but one are conference games. I mean, there aren't really breaks in that schedule unless you consider New Mexico State a break. But otherwise, there's no real break in that schedule. So how much do you push guys? Can you afford to let them, have 3-4 days where they're not out there practicing the physicality of the game? Because you don't want to get rusty. You still have to practice the physicality of the game.
Totally.
But you also need bodies. You're going to need bodies against LSU. You're sure going to need bodies in the secondary, especially against Ole Miss. That game particularly, you're going to need guys in the secondary as healthy as you can get them. So, that's a worthy number 1 on the list.
Yep. A lot of offense coming Auburn's way for sure. The second's the quarterback situation. And look, if you're going to make a change, now's the time to do it. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm sure it'll be somewhat discussed. But more so the quarterback rotation. And look, it's hard to nail down a quarterback rotation and the timing and all that. That's why nobody really does it. You don't see it a whole lot. And when you do see it, it's typically not a good thing for the offense because it's so hard and it takes so long to really figure out exactly what you need to do. And I think Saturday was closer, Brad. I don't fully understand why they took him out, why they took Robbie out after he was in on 3rd down. And then if it's 4th and 1, you take him out. I don't get it. I don't understand it. That's kind of why I thought you would install that package for Robbie Ashford.
Yeah.
So whatever the quarterback situation is, however you want to spread out those snaps. And if it is make a change, I don't think it's time for that. I think Peyton showed enough on Saturday to warrant more time. But if you were, that quarterback snaps, that's all going to be discussed at length amongst the coaching staff and I'm sure amongst the quarterbacks this week. That's something you got to nail down.
I think the passing game in general, whether it's Peyton or Robbie, they've got to get more in sync with the wide receivers going forward. Lack of playmakers at that position has cost Auburn in some spots, and it didn't matter against Texas A&M to a great degree. I mean, there were a few plays that might have made that game. It certainly would have looked different. Maybe it makes a difference against Georgia. So probably does. And again, it's when you have a starting quarterback who wasn't here in the spring, there really is only so much work that you can do in the summer and in fall camp. So you have to take every practice, every possible opportunity, bye week or no bye week, to try to get the receivers. Half of the receiving core is also brand new. Right. And it's people want so badly to go, well, they're not new now. They've been here for, but relative to the secondaries they face, relative to other receiving core and quarterback combos, they're still playing catch up. So you got to get valuable reps in every single practice in the passing game if you hope to be able to make it doesn't just magically happen. You got to rep it and rep it and rep it and rep it to be able to be in a spot to make those plays in the second half of the schedule.
Yeah, and then the third one is just the connection between Hugh Freeze and offensive coordinator Philip Montgomery. I think that's crucial. And you're seeing those guys get more and more on the same page every week. It seems, I think the Texas A&M situation was a major wake-up call for Coach Freeze. And now it almost feels like it's going to be his offense moving forward. He may not be calling plays, but it's going to be more like his offense. It's like he gave him the keys to his car, and it's like, you wrecked it. You wrecked it. And so now I'm going to make sure I know where you're going. You need to text me what time you leave. You need to tell me when you get there. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen with this, offensive game planning over the bye week, because I'm sure they're going to kind of get a tentative plan. We already talked about the quarterbacks, but they're going to get a tentative plan about how they want to attack LSU and Ole Miss. I'm sure they're going to watch the game from Saturday, that crazy game where over 100 points were scored between the two of those teams, a bunch. And I'm sure they're going to kind of do, a little scouting on both of those teams over the bye week. So getting on the same page between Freeze and Montgomery, I think that happens a little bit more this week.
Yeah, I think the inner dilemma for Coach Freeze of whether to divide the time solely or to give the time solely to recruiting and be more hands-off, I think that's out the window. I think they have built a good enough foundation in recruiting that for the next 2 months, all right, let's be more hands-on with the offense. He's still going to work in recruiting for sure. But yes, I think you see his fingerprints on the offense much more, just as you saw in the Georgia game.